let's talk about a commerce platform that has grown dramatically in the past few years. I'm excited about this session because we last had this speaker on the Signal stage in 2014 when things were a little bit different for his company. Nilam Ganenthiran is president of Instacart, where he leads the company's retail, pickup, and advertising businesses, in addition to overseeing other key functions. Before he joined Instacart, he served grocery, mass merchandise, and drugstore clients as a management consultant with A.T. Kearney. And he began his career in shopper market and brand management with P&G, where he worked on household brands like Pampers and IAMS. So welcome back to the P&G community, Nilam. It's very good to have you here. Let's get started.
It's great to see you, John. Thank you for the time, and thank you. It's great to be back in front of Signal.
Yeah. So catch us up. In the past 6 or 7 years, your company has grown dramatically. Obviously, the last 18 months must have been pretty extraordinary. Get us up to speed on that. What is Instacart's footprint now? What percentage of grocery shoppers are using online shopping for groceries on a regular basis?
Yeah, it has been a very dramatic last 18 months, John, as customers, by necessity, were forced for the first time to discover that they could order their fresh groceries online and get it delivered through our service same day and as quickly as in 1 hour from the grocery stores that they know and trust. To give you an idea of what last year looked like, we pulled forward 3 to 5 years of demand into a 3 to 5 week period. And we basically achieved our financial projections that we were planning to have as a company in 2024 and 2025 in 2020. And there were some key things we discovered, on our path to becoming the leading North American grocery e-commerce platform, which we are today. Where we estimate just under half of groceries sold online happen through our platform or through sites that we power. Some of the things we discovered last year were, one, consumers had been waiting for an opportunity to buy groceries online, not for every trip, but most people didn't know that they could. And this came as a big surprise, frankly, to me. Living, eating, and breathing Instacart, you would assume that everyone across North America knew that they could pick up an app and get their groceries delivered. But our awareness was staggeringly low because grocery e-commerce was still relatively a new to world thing. Last year, because of what we all were going through with shelter in place, et cetera, for the first time, consumers were forced to explore other options, and then they started to pick up our app and the apps that we power on behalf of our retailers. So that was the first thing we learned about the North American consumer. The second thing we learned, as things have started to open up, is that the North American consumer loves going to grocery stores. And there are times where she will want to buy her groceries in store. There's times that she's going to want to order online and have it picked up. And there's other times where her life demands that she gets delivery. And Instacart, frankly, wants to provide the digital layer in partnership with our brick and mortar partners to support all of those occasions. And we don't think there is just there's an online customer and an in-store customer. There is a customer, and she needs all three ways of interacting with her grocery store. And the final thing we learned, which probably is pretty intuitive, is there is no one-size-fits-all solution for the consumer journey when customers are buying online. For some folks, they like to browse the site, they like to look at recipes, they want to interact with content. While for other folks, it's a very much a functional experience. They want to get in and out of the digital store as quickly as possible. And we have to design our digital experiences to facilitate both, deep shopping and discovery and curation, with also just getting things done quickly. So those were, kind of three things that came out of last year.
It strikes me that possibly Instacart and grocery shopping behavior, as you described, it sounds like you got 3 to 4 years of marketing budget done by, a tragedy. So I don't want to make light of that, but the truth is your awareness went from, wherever it was, probably in the low double digits, to 100%, as you point out, in a few weeks. But I think everyone has this question, and not just as it relates to online commerce, which is it going to stick? Or, now that we've seen reopening across at least the United States, a market that is really core to you, Have you seen people fall off and start to revert to other behaviors, or have you hit a plateau or even continued growth?
Yeah, it's such a great question, John. I think what we're seeing is twofold. One, our awareness still isn't anywhere close to 100%. I wish we had that problem where we're still, still half. I think a little more than half the country doesn't know we exist, and we need to work on that. But more specifically, what we're seeing as things have opened up is customers are continuing to use the platform, and they're moderating their engagement based on whatever else they have going on and whatever else happens in their day. So the way I think about it is, imagine a consumer who never before knew that this was an option. They started to use it 100% of the time for 100% of occasions. Now the world has opened up, and they're thinking about, I can get 2 hours of my week back by using a service like Instacart for my groceries. Do I want to allocate those 2 hours this week to go to a ball game or spend more time with my family, or do I want to spend time in the physical grocery store? And that's not a values choice or a judgment in either direction. It's just some consumers are saying, okay, this week it's an Instacart week, the next week it's an in-store week, and it really and that flexibility is actually what we want to build into consumers' lives, because as I mentioned before, I think it's a balance between in-store, online, and online is pickup, delivery, rapid delivery. It's all of the above.
Interesting. We'll see. I mean, if I recall correctly, because I am a customer, you remind me how much time I've saved when I use your service. Isn't that true?
Absolutely. And First of all, thank you for being a customer. I mean, we do that, John, because we think that is one of the key value propositions of our service. It's giving people time back to spend it on things they want to do.
Our previous speaker, Scott Galloway, says the best companies are time machines. They manufacture time and give it back to customers. So that is that one stuck with me. Now, your business runs on what you've called a four-sided marketplace. Many have heard of the term a two-sided marketplace, but can you unpack what a four-sided marketplace is?
Yeah, absolutely, John. I think as we started the journey to build this company, we said four-sided marketplace. That sounds a lot more complicated than three or two sides. Why don't we do that? We tried to increase the complexity. In all seriousness, what we describe by talking about our business as a four-sided marketplace is our role in striking to balance between four very important constituents. And it all starts with the consumer, which is what we all are. All the other three sides are there to serve. Picture Instacart in the middle as a technology and logistics layer, and then I'll talk about each of the other sides. The first is brick and mortar retailers. Instacart exists in service of our brick and mortar retailers. We don't own inventory. We won't own inventory. We exist to bring brick and mortar grocers online and help them compete in an increasingly Amazon.com world. So that's the first side, providing tech and logistics for brick and mortar retailers. The second side is our personal shoppers. These are the hundreds of thousands of people who on any given day look for and find great earnings opportunities on our platform by picking up the phone and flexibly being able to pick up a batch or pick up an order and be able to add more earnings into the rest of their lives. And for us, we take that responsibility of providing earnings opportunities in a flexible way very seriously, because that's frankly the caring and feeding of hundreds of thousands of people who are on the front lines with our consumer. The third side of our marketplace is our CPG partners, so folks like Procter & Gamble, who work with us to be able to get their message out and introduce and reintroduce their brands to consumers who are shopping on the Instacart platform or retailer platforms that we power. And then finally, as I mentioned right at the start of this, all of those three sides win if we're doing the right thing for the consumer. So if there is a trade-off to be made between what is best for any one party and the consumer, we think over the medium and long term, if you keep doing what's right for the consumer, you take care of the other constituents in the marketplace.
Well, you just opened the door to my next question. You mentioned the 900-pound gorilla, Amazon. Yeah. Amazon competes directly with you, and is fearsome. Fearsome in all the aspects of that word. Extraordinary as a logistics company. I will admit that I am also a customer of Amazon's grocery services, and I find the two quite different, and I'm happy to talk with you about that now or offline. But tell me the story of how you, uh, came to grips with that and how you managed competing with such a large, established competitor. For example, how did your gut feel the day you heard Amazon bought Whole Foods, which was one of the largest, of your retail partners?
Yeah. More specifically, it was our largest partner at the time,
I
John.
was trying to be politic,
But
but
yeah, I will start by saying we as a company have always, respected and admired Amazon. Our founder, Apurva, was a software engineer at Amazon, and we hold them in very high regard. And their maniacal focus of solving for the consumer and the customer is something that we try to inject in our own culture. Now, speaking about the specific day when we heard of the Amazon Whole Foods acquisition, we found out with the rest of the world. We were asked by the leadership team of Whole Foods to hop on a call. Myself and our founder, first thing in the morning. I think it was a Friday. And it's one of those vivid memories that I'll always remember. I was eating breakfast. CNBC was on. I was on this conference call, and I see on the cron at the bottom, Amazon acquires Whole Foods. I text my boss and said, I think I know what this call is going to be about. The the CEO and founder of Whole Foods and our key client, the CIO, hop on a call, let us know that this happened, and of course they were great partners to us, and we really respected the way they handled that communication. After that, I remember for that precise moment right after seeing the cron and hearing their voices, I remember my instinct was, this is going to be very good for us and the industry. That was my first instinct. And the reason was I viewed it as an opportunity to get over some of the inertia and make sure brick and mortar grocers understood that we need to solve for the consumer in a really new way with this new formidable competitor entering the space. Unfortunately, that feeling only lasted for about 5 minutes, John. What we then did was we went and huddled with the rest of our leadership team, shared the news, and started to game plan how we were going to respond. And there was a lot of, as you'd imagine, fear around what does this mean for the future of our company. And that started to overcome the initial positive emotion. We put our heads down. We focused on what needed to be done, which was keeping the troops motivated, keeping our internal troops motivated, getting on the phone with every single North American retailer, and eventually very quickly getting on planes to see them all, and working with our broader team on how we should redevelop the product so that our retailers had the right weapons to be able to fight this new formidable competitor. And we didn't allow ourselves to wallow, and thank goodness we didn't. We kind of charged forward.
Yeah. I can only imagine. It's a classic kind of Silicon Valley tale when the big player decides,
Yeah.
hey, that's a pretty interesting market. Think I'll get into it. But you've thrived and differentiated, and one of the things is that strikes me that's key is what you mentioned earlier, which is the customer experience, the consumer experience, if you will. I have not found it always to be great. I have found it distinct, and I think I'm mirroring the views of a lot of, at least folks that I know who use all the services, including yours and Amazon's. Quite often you get the substitutions, you get 70 bags for 78 grocery items. You get things left in random places. It seems, at least in my town of New York, that the bike lanes have been completely taken over by grocery delivery, traffic. How do you win by focusing on the customer experiencing, and why is it so difficult to get that bag of groceries right?
Yes. Yeah. Well, I think the real answer is, John, there's no silver bullet. We're about a decade into trying to inch forward on making the online grocery experience mirror that of the in-store experience. So one of the really interesting things is if you contrast grocery as a shopping occasion relative to all other forms of e-commerce in our estimation, is groceries, specifically in North America, have historically been done in a really high quality way. The US has more grocery store square footage than on a per capita basis than any other country. Our grocers are fantastic operators, often multi-generational family companies where the craft of grocery merchandising runs in their blood. And grocery shopping is something that consumers like going to stores. So when you think about bringing that experience online, what it takes is a maniacal focus on the core operations to solve the substitutions problem you mentioned, et cetera. And you have to remember, Instacart's mandate is we can't solve that just for one warehouse or one store that we own. What we have to solve it for is the 55,000 store locations across 600 grocery retailers, where one may specialize in great butchered products, the other might be a vegan cooperative, the third might be a kind of mass merchandise chain, and we have to solve it across all of those. And our take is that by applying technology and moving the ball forward 1 yard at a time over a long enough time period, that compounds, and we will continue to have the best operational experience when customers are shopping for groceries. That being said, I think we are on the precipice as an industry of some real leaps forward on other parts of the consumer experience outside of the core operations. Those include things like, how do we bring some of that merchandising magic happening in stores into the online experience? Now that consumers are more comfortable buying groceries online, does that give us permission to take more risks around content and media that then consumers can shop from? And we think frankly we didn't have the permission to try to make those types of moves before this unfortunate pandemic. And what we're seeing and hearing for consumers right now is they want that. Our retailers want us to come to them with that type of innovation, and most importantly, the consumers want that type of depth of experience. Not all the time, some of the times when they're buying groceries, and Instacart plans to respond to that.
Well, you've put yourself in a position of sometimes being the intermediary is great, and sometimes being the intermediary, you can end up being the bad guy.
Yeah.
And Google, for example, is a perfect intermediary between all the information in the world and a search engine where you ask one question. You are building an advertising business, which is a classic
Absolutely.
Intermediary thing to do. And tell us a little bit about that and how marketers might engage with it.
Yeah, absolutely, John. And first of all, maybe let me take a huge step back and say, why are we building an advertising business, which we've been building for the last 5 years, but really are doubling down on with some great talent that we've been able to bring in from folks like Amazon, Google, and Facebook. We build an advertising business because we believe our role in this industry to bring consumers online to shop for groceries, part of that means we need to continue to take costs out of the system, and for the economics to work for consumers to adapt grocery online in a meaningful way, and for it to work with retailer P&Ls, we need consumers and CPG partners to be able to connect in a high ROI way. Mm-hmm. And basically the economic equation is advertising helps us keep costs to our retailers and consumers low. So that's why we do it. Now, what are we hearing from CPG advertisers today, and where do we think this goes? I think we're in very early innings, despite being at it for a number of years. We brought on great talent, but what we're seeing from folks, hopefully like Procter & Gamble, is that our advertising tool set, which continues to improve every week, is something that is allowing them to connect with consumers at the point of purchase online in a high return on advertising spend way. Today we work with over 3,000 advertisers, everyone from the largest to the local mom and pops. And we believe part of our role is being able to democratize access to online customers for these CPG manufacturers, those who may want to introduce new brands to them, those that may want to talk to existing customers in new ways, but always in a way that makes sense for them financially. And you'll see us continuing to invest in a deep way there, John.
Final question. I could talk to you for another 20 or 30 minutes here, and hopefully we'll have you back. But one of the key pillars that we are talking about has to do with policy.
Yes.
And you mentioned those hundreds of thousands of people who work with you. They are all part of what is broadly understood to be the gig economy. And there's been a very interesting debate or ongoing discussion around the role of workers in the gig economy. What's the role Instacart plays there, and what's your point of view on how these workers should be integrated into our economic safety net?
Yeah, thank you so much for the question, John. And it's something I spent a lot of time thinking about. So we see ourselves within the gig economy, and we often get lumped into that framework. But actually, the types of opportunities we offer folks sometimes do not always fit into the broader framework of gig economy. So I should start there. But the most important thing for us is providing meaningful, high-quality earnings opportunities for our personal shoppers in a way that responds to their needs. And our view, and part of the reason why I think the gig economy classification for Instacart is not always the best way to think about it, is that there are many role types and jobs in our own system that call for employment status. So a little known fact is Instacart has thousands of folks who are employees for the company working in our grocery stores, picking groceries on behalf of our retailers. We have hundreds of thousands of contractors for whom having a pre-assigned shift, having a management hierarchy, having a set number of hours they have to work, a minimum number of hours or maximum number of hours they have to work every week, just doesn't make sense for them. What they like to use our type of service for is ways to augment other things they're doing in their lives, be they students or stay-at-home parents or folks with other jobs, and they're trying to add on supplementary income to reach a savings goal. And we view our role as, if you want to have a job that is more an employment type situation, we have those opportunities. If you want more flexible opportunities, the contractor mode makes the most sense. The thing I'm proudest of that happened in the pandemic, which often we don't talk about, we talk about the consumer side, we talk about the retailer side. The thing I'm proudest of is the shopper side. During the pandemic, while we added over 400,000 new personal shoppers on a weekly basis who were shopping weekly with us, we achieved our highest net promoter score from our shoppers. So we were able to increase the quality of how they felt about doing this gig. And we did that while, unfortunately, the rest of the economy was shut down. So folks in the kind of service industry, be it airlines, hotels, car rental agencies, we partnered with great firms like Hertz, Delta Airlines, Hilton Hotels to be able to onboard some of their employees onto our platform, so that those folks didn't have missed earnings during the terrible period we were in this time last year. So anyway,
that's actually a great success story, and we'll have to leave it there, unfortunately. But Nilam, thank you so much for returning to Signal, and I look forward to checking in with you soon.
Thank you so much for your time, John.